Check. 1, 2.
The D.
Brief.
This is the D Brief.
Go. Your guide to Detroit.
Your guide to Detroit's arts
and entertainment scene.
This is the D
Brief.
Hello and welcome to the Debrief. I'm your co-host. My name is Seth Ressler.
I'm Becky Scarcello.
And I'm Jag.
And it is Thursday, and every Thursday here at the Debrief, we do an in-depth interview with somebody in the arts and entertainment scene in Detroit. Now, this month, September, is Detroit Month of Design.
So excited about this.
Yes,
It's incredible. Over 40 events.
Yeah, you've been talking about this. I'm going to make a confession. I don't know a lot about the world of design, so we figured we'd bring an expert in.
Exactly.
And you found one, Becky.
I did.
Olga Stella. She is the Executive Director of Design Core Detroit. Olga, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So let's start here. What is design? And give us a couple of specific examples, and also talk a little bit about why it matters.
Sure. So design is just the application of creativity to problem solving. And so a lot of times, people think of it as, luxury items, fancy furniture, fancy handbags, things like that. But design is really all around us. It's in the places that we live, the architecture and the interior design of buildings. It's in all the products that we use every day, whether it is a piece of furniture or a mug. It's in our phones. So the way that we interface with all the mobile apps, it takes many forms, but it's really about humans just using their natural creativity and applying it to solve a problem. Has some parameters, and it can manifest itself as a product, a service, or a building.
And so then what does your organization, Design Core Detroit, do?
So we're part of the College for Creative Studies, and we were formed in partnership with business leaders from Michigan. And we're an economic development organization. It's our mission to position Detroit as a global source of creative talent. So we work with design-driven businesses of all types, from architects to graphic designers to makers, and we help them figure out how to grow. We help them expand their markets. We give them business education, and we really work to help promote them to the local community and frankly, to a global community.
And it's pretty exciting to be in Detroit for design, especially this time. But I mean, we have such an amazing history of design and great design coming out, and I think a resurgence of it now.
That's right.
So I understand this event, the Detroit Month of Design, started out as a week of design. So can you talk a little bit about the growth of that and what's changing?
This is our 8th year, and you're right, Becky. When it started, it was a homegrown, crowdsourced week we had 80 events that first year. I wasn't with Design Core, but I remember going to a number of the events and, all different types, exhibitions and community experiences and lectures and talks. That was 8 years ago. And, what we found over the years was that week got more and more jam-packed. We had many of the professional associations, the American Institute for Architects or the AIGA, a lot of these design associations saying, we want to try to do our event, in Design Week. We want to be part of the Design Festival. And the last 2 years, because of our UNESCO designation in 2015, Detroit was designated a UNESCO City of Design. We're the only one in the United States.
Can you repeat that?
Yes, we are the only UNESCO City of Design in the U.S.
And explain what that means. I mean,
Sure.
Why is that significant?
So it's a real honor. It both honors the legacy of design that we have here, but it also looks forward to the future and says, you have this legacy. You can do something with it in your community to make a better community, and invites us to be part of a system of 31 cities across the world that are all using design. So these are cities like Helsinki and Berlin and Bilbao, but also smaller post-industrial cities like Detroit, but also Saint-Étienne in France, Puebla, Mexico, which is outside of Mexico City. And one of the new cities is Geelong, Australia, which I'm sure you've heard of. No. But it's
I just got back. Thanks.
Exactly.
Vegemite there is awesome.
Exactly. So it's a second city to Melbourne in Australia.
Okay.
Graz in Austria is very much an automotive, second city to Vienna, right? These are these industrial automotive cities. So this kind of mix of cities, we're all using design in a way to help drive revitalization in our city. And we're learning from each other and sharing best practices. So 2 years ago when we got this designation, and wanted to really use the design festival to highlight it. All of a sudden, our events started creeping outside of that 1 week, and we were doing some things at the beginning of the month and doing some things at the end of the month. And we did that again last year. We talked to some of our partners at Murals in the Market and De-Electricity and said, hey, we should call September a month of art and design. And then this year we said, you know what? We're already doing events all throughout the month. This thing is, people are so excited. There's so much enthusiasm in the design community. We have over 50 different organizations are partnering with us in some way. Let's just claim the month, and we did, and I think we're really excited about what's on deck.
So walk us through some of those events, because you've got a lot. Pick out some that you want to highlight, and talk about who should go to those different events.
Well, we welcome
Everybody should go, Seth.
That's exactly right,
but
Jack.
that was actually my question.
Something
Is it a
for
general
everyone.
public, or is this more of a professional?
For both.
Okay.
So there are definitely some events that are for the general public, and really, if you don't know anything about design, we want you to come so you can start to experience it. So there's 4 types of events. There's exhibitions and lectures. And those are going to be, I think, those are going to appeal to, I think, both the general public, but also people in the design community. So some of the really cool ones. There's some Afrofuturist talk at the Charles Wright that the Penny Stamp School of Art and Design is bringing on September 8th. It's the Rude Boys, Osborne, Macaria, and Blinky Bill. And if you don't know anything about Afrofuturism and why it matters, especially in our community, which is one of the centers of Afrofuturism in the country, this will be a really great way to come and get immersed in it.
So I don't
What
want to.
is Afrofuturism?
No spoiler alerts.
I'll
but-
ask for you, Seth. Explain what Afrofuturism is.
Wakanda.
I still haven't seen it.
All right.
Well, you can see it this
right.
week at New Center Park
Exactly.
outside.
Yeah, you got to catch up on the Afro presence. If you
I'm
haven't
really
seen.
excited about B Mike.
Yeah, well, that was the other one, right? So that's on September 6th, I
12th?
think. 12th. That's
yeah.
right after. And then the other big name that's coming is Kat Holmes. She was a leader of inclusive design at Microsoft. She's now at Google.
Wow.
She's written a book called Mismatch. So she'll be at the College for Creative Studies as part of their Toyota Lecture Series on the September 19th. And then the next day, on the 20th, we're doing a workshop with her on what is inclusive design. Our whole UNESCO designation, we went through a 18-month process with 1,000 people to say, okay, what is the thing that we're going to share back with the network that we want to be the leaders of? And it's this emerging practice of inclusive design. So we've worked with CCS to bring Kat to Detroit to really start to help people understand, like, what is inclusive design? What does that matter?
Yeah, what does that mean, and what does that matter, and who are we
I
including?
find this
and-
very fascinating.
And does that tie in with you said about UNESCO designation making it using design toward the future? Like, so what is that? Does it look like, and how do those things intersect?
That's exactly right. So yes to all of these things. So first, what is inclusive design? So it's when you are designing that you're considering the full range of human characteristics, and that you're keeping those things in mind, so that the products, services, systems that you design, that you develop, can allow people, no matter what their background is, to live independently, confidently, and successfully in life. So when you think about it from the simplest way to think about it is like when you design a building. Now these days we don't just design steps walking into the building. We don't just design heavy doors that you have to be able to open with your hands, right? We design a way that if you have limited mobility, if you're in a wheelchair, if you maybe can't open the heavy door, right? There's different ways to kind of get into a building. If you're a kid or if you're an older person, we consider all these kinds of things.
You mentioned that. Seriously, I had a very serious injury about 5.5 years ago, and my left arm was in a sling for a year and a half. And you'd be amazed at the thing, like cutting my own fingernails was so difficult.
Right.
And when I found...
That's why I bite mine.
Yeah. When I found a catalog that did one-handed stuff, one-handed, can openers and things like that, and it's where you appreciate design like that, it made a big difference.
So that's just on the physical capacity side, right? Your mobility and your strength and all those kinds of things, which really go both to age, they go to people who've been injured, they go to all different kinds of people. But then when you start to layer in socioeconomic background, so do I have the means to be able to do that? If I want to use this service and it costs $1 bajillion, then that's not really very inclusive at all, right? So I can't use that park, I can't use that public transit or whatever. Then it goes to, you can also think about literacy levels, foreign language, different kinds of social and cultural things. I mean, I think many of us know that different colors mean different things in different cultures. And so even just to being mindful of these things. And what we're not necessarily saying that you've got to have this gigantic checklist of 1,000 different things that you're trying to, but if you start to think about the thing that you're designing and you look at it from the lens of different people who are different than you and who may not seem like they're the norm in society, people who might seem like they're the exception, if you look at it from their viewpoint, you'll develop one service, one product, one tool that can work for everybody.
Right.
Well, speaking to that too, not only from the design perspective, from the designer perspective. So of course we want designers from all these different backgrounds. So I think part of what you're doing here is showing people that they can see themselves in design careers, for
That's
instance.
exactly right.
And with B. Mike coming and talking, I know a lot of his work is about murals that portray, kids can see themselves. An African-American child can see themselves as very beautiful in a large-scale street mural.
Unlike the quick and fail a few months back.
So if you don't see yourself in the pipeline of somewhere, it doesn't feel like it belongs to you.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we have so many of the, there's a wide range of youth-oriented events, because I think especially as we think about that next generation of designers, so this goes to why does this matter for Detroit? So much is happening in Detroit right now with, physical revitalization, right? Whether it's parks being built, new housing developments, new restaurants, all these kinds of things. If we don't have an inclusive design mindset when we're developing all these things, if the businesses that are coming don't have an inclusive design mindset, then who is all of this for?
This goes back to something we've talked about is gentrification, and this is a way to avoid some of the pitfalls of gentrification.
Yeah.
Except let me ask about that, because I know one of the things that we're very conscious of here in Detroit is not just ripping down what was there before and replacing it with something new.
Exactly.
And is there a tension between, or a balance that you have to find between this idea of preserving the legacy of what was there in the past and yet building something that is inclusive towards?
Yeah, I think the trick is what we don't want to do is be trapped in the past, right? Because there's also a lot of bad things about the past, right?
Right.
Segregation, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of bad things in the past too, and so I think the opportunity with this is if we invite people of all different backgrounds, people who've been in Detroit, and we invite them to be part of designing the future of the city, then you retain kind of the culture, right? What's authentic about Detroit, what people say they love, like grittiness, and frankly, it's African American culture that is really deeply imprinted in the DNA of this city, for 100 years. And you bring that forward into the future, and it's part of that future. It's not, kind of pushed to the side in certain neighborhoods, but it's really part of the whole revitalization, downtown to the neighborhoods, and everybody. And the thing about gentrification is nobody wants to be displaced. Nobody wants to be disrespected. And I think when you use an inclusive design mindset, and when that's your frame for how you're developing neighborhoods, developing a business, then you're not displacing or disrespecting people. You're respecting them in the process. You're including them in the process, and developing, product systems, places that are welcoming, right, to all.
When we talk about design, is there such a thing as a Detroit design aesthetic? And if so, what is it? And does that become less and less as the world becomes more interconnected? Do you see geography playing less of a role in design, or more so?
So I don't necessarily think there's an agreed upon aesthetic at this point, but this idea of inclusive design is the thing that we want Detroit to be known for, that we've got the institutions, the people, the businesses that know how to do this, and that others around the world can learn from. And so this is the thing that we can be unique on. When you think about the other cities of design, a Helsinki, a Beijing, a Berlin, a Bilbao, they're in many ways very homogeneous, right?
Sure.
We have this immense diversity, cultural and ethnic, racial, people of all different kinds of backgrounds have come here and been part of this. And it's also really, I think, really part of our history, where you think about, the kind of waves of population that we've had. These other cities don't have that. And so this was one of the reasons why, together with a bunch of partners and stakeholders, we're like, this is the thing that if we really become experts in this, it's just at the beginning stages of being developed, this way of designing. It's kind of, we talked about, there was a time 20, 30 years ago where we didn't have curb cuts and we didn't have accessible ways of entering a building, right? We had to build special ramps on the side for people in wheelchairs, and we didn't make, bathrooms accessible to all kinds of people. That was a revolution in design to think about physical accessibility. And what we're saying is the next revolution is about all these other kinds of human, characteristics, socioeconomic, gender identity, social, cultural, those kinds of things.
Do we have any examples of that here in Detroit yet, or are we
we
still
do.
still at the beginning? So
We actually, this is what is so exciting for me, and a lot of our partners who are doing great things have their events throughout the month of design. But when we started developing the strategy, we announced it in April, and before we announced it, we put a call out to all the people who've been working with us and said, hey, we're going in this direction on inclusive design. You've helped shape this. Tell us if you have a project that is in this inclusive design realm that we'd love to put it forward and show people this is what's happening in Detroit. We had 100 applications, 100 people, 100 projects that came forward. 50 of them, actually, it's 50 partners, 60 projects were actually in process happening. The other were things that people wanted to do but hadn't started. And so we said, well, this is so many, we should just take the things that are actually happening. So if you go to our website, designcore.org, under the Detroit City of Design page, and that page is a list of all the partners and all their projects. And there's 50 partners and 60 projects. And they're doing things like helping to develop youth and exposing youth to design. So the Henry Ford Learning Institute is doing a ton in that aspect. Their businesses, so a number of the big architecture firms downtown are doing mentorship programs to bring in kids who might not otherwise be exposed to architecture backgrounds to be interns in their offices. We've got a number of community projects. There's the Seabalt pilot. It's a green energy pilot where they used they worked with the residents on this block on Seabalt Street to develop a green design for their block with solar panels and some other things. But basically, the architects worked hand in glove with the neighborhood residents to figure out, so how would you develop this green energy system for these two blocks? They won an international design award. They were third internationally on the Lafarge Holcomb Foundation's awards, and they were first in North America for this approach. So there's a bunch of the Detroit Riverfront, even with the development of the West Riverfront, their whole process of picking the designers for that West Riverfront is we would hold it up as a gold standard for inclusive design because of the way they really involved residents of all different backgrounds and public process and helping to say, so this is kind of what we want on this riverfront. The opposite of it, when you so what isn't inclusive design? A bunch of people who don't look like the community sitting in a room dictating, right?
Yeah.
And saying, we know better.
We're going to put solar panels
gods.
on your house. We don't want to care what you think. We're just going
Right.
to give you the solar panels and stick a windmill in your front yard.
Yeah, good luck to you, right?
Yeah.
And the opposite is we're not, we have, so and there's a mindset, and we have a lot of designers in Detroit who practice this way. The mindset is we have these tools, we have this expertise about how to process this information, but we don't have the lived. So we're going to ask people about their experience, about their needs. We're going to listen. We'll use all that information and use our design tools to then propose back solutions, not just impose solutions.
And the
on
best
people.
part about that is once you include these residents or the people that's going to affect in the decision-making process, they feel a sense of ownership in the whole thing.
Absolutely, and they feel like it's for them, right? So there's there's tons of things happening, and it's exciting for me to see it all kind of coming together.
Gelling, yes. Speaking of that, just could you talk a little bit about the building that you're in, the Alfred Tallman Center? I think it will help people understand even that's just a microcosm of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But that's really a worldwide model for how to operate this way to train the new generations and work together with real world problems.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, what's so exciting? So the Alfred Tallman Center for Design and Education is part of the College for Creative Studies, and it used to be. It was known for many years as the Argonaut Building, and it was General Motors' research and design building, specially built, for that purpose. And that's where Harley Earl, who was one of the first vice presidents of Fortune 500 company for design, had his offices. Many people in the industrial design discipline say that that's where the discipline of industrial design was born. He was the VP of color and styling, and it quickly became design. And
It's kind of a cool title. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, so when you think about the tech center and the design dome that they have there, really the prototype for that was the building that I work in now, the Tallman Center. But it is, I mean, the Tallman Center is exactly that, Becky. It's you can see. You see, we have a high school, a middle school and high school in there, the Henry Ford School for Creative Studies. So you see, Detroit kids starting to learn all about art and design and getting kind of the skill, being exposed to it. Of course, the college is in there. The graduate, all the design programs are in that building, and the graduate studies. There's dorms in the building too. So there's a lot of youthful energy in the building all the time, which is great. Shinola has their headquarters there. So their offices, their leather design studio, and the watch factory is in the building. Our office is in there on the ground floor, and then the top floors are conference space, and so we get all kinds of amazing conferences. The Illustrators Association was in town this summer, and so it's just a lot of fun stuff like that all in the building. But it's a really nice mix, and you can see a 13-year-old kid coming through the door, and they could very well end up back in the building at finishing a degree at CCS and then
Nice.
going to work at Shinola.
Right.
I'm going to ask a multi-part question here. So I want you to make some recommendations for a couple of different people when it comes to Design Month.
Okay.
If it's somebody like me who, I'm into the arts, but I don't really know anything about design, it's kind of a new concept for me. Where's a good place for the uninitiated to start?
So I'll give you 3 recommendations, and there are 3 of the events that we put on because they're really meant to meet people at all different kinds of levels. So Drinks by Design on September 13th.
I have heard about this. This keeps
I
popping
was
up in my
telling you
Facebook
about
feed.
that.
And
Yes.
what is that?
So it's a monthly networking event that we put on, and it's meant to bring the design community together, but also to welcomes everybody. And our September version is a design crawl. This year, we're crawling through the Fisher Building, starting on the lobby level, the concourse, going up to the 4th floor, where they've rented out that 4th floor. They're one of our city design partners to small creative businesses. People, artists who need studios, photographers, graphic design firms. So those businesses on the 4th floor will be open, and there'll be a bunch of fun activities. And then Albert Kahn has moved their offices into the building, and Albert Kahn Associates designed the Fisher Building. So it's a wonderful homecoming. So their offices are brand new, and it'll be open up on the 19th floor. But there'll be a wide variety of things going on throughout the building that start to give you a sense of like, oh, so that's design. Oh, that's design. And just start to give you a taste of both some of the other events that are happening throughout the month, but also what are the different ways that I can see design in either things that I can buy or experiences that I can have. And it's, you get a cocktail in your hand.
It's
you
fun.
get to,
Yeah.
it's
I
a lot
like
of
that. I'm
fun. There's
sold.
good music. It's
Yeah.
great. It's really contained.
And completely unintimidating. Like, I want people to know, a lot of times you say, well, go to this gallery opening or go to this design thing. And it has that sort of like, is it accessible? Am I going to feel awkward? What do I have to wear?
The visual that comes to my mind is the museum scene in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where they're looking at the paintings. And
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like, do you see it? Do you not see it?
So it is so
Yeah.
not like that.
No.
It's just a fun party.
And a lot of the designers that we talk to who exhibit their work, and or have a booth or whatever we do Drinks by Design March through September. We pick a different location. Last month we were at the Arab American National Museum. Before that, in July, it was one of my favorites. We were actually June, we were at the Edison Boat Club in the shadow of the Connor Creek power plant. And we had the exhibit was on, we had a bunch of architecture firms talking about adaptive reuse. So buildings that were now being used for something else. And there's an RFP out for the Connor Creek power plant to try to imagine a new future for it. So people were able to kind of go take a tour of the grounds of the Connor Creek power plant. They got to go to this private boat club that they've never been to before, and it's completely free and open to the public. And we just really we want people to come and learn what design is.
Olga, I'm curious if you've met Seth before this, because he asked what's a good event, and you immediately lured him in with alcohol. It's like you knew him.
So that's one, but you said there were two
two
others.
more. So Easter Market After Dark.
Yes.
It can be a little intimidating because 20,000 people come to it.
Yes.
So what I would say is take a Lyft or an Uber there, or take a Mogo, or
Or a bird scooter now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
or a bird
don't try.
scooter, because parking might be a challenge because it is on fire. So we program some design, experiences in Shed 2, which, and if you know the Easter Market sheds. But all the other sheds are open. There are vendors selling, beautiful things that they've made. There's music. The American Institute for Architects Detroit chapter has their gala, but this year they're opening it to the public. So if you are like, what is architecture? You can go through there. They usually have some amazing either fashion or music experiences. Sometimes there are crazy things that happen. Like we just try to create a platform, but all the businesses are open, and really the whole district comes alive. It's also one of the last nights for murals in the market.
Yes.
And so there's live painting. It's just the energy is kind of unbelievable. So that's another really, really fun one. And then the last one, which is one of my favorites, is Light Up Livernois. September 29th, it'll take place on the historic Avenue of Fashion on Livernois Avenue between Outer Drive and 7 Mile. And that's a really much more community driven. Because I think sometimes when we think about design, we're like, we're thinking about fancy designers with fancy educations, that kind of thing. And when you go to Livernois, you can see just how integrated design is in the lives of Detroiters. Some of the businesses that have been there for many, many years, some of the amazing artists that live in that community come out and, show their work. The businesses are all open. There's music, lots of people walking around. It's really fun.
So those are great events for the uninitiated. Let me also ask for a young person who is maybe into art, is into photography or sculpting or graphic design or whatever, but thinks of art as largely outside of their job.
Yeah.
And doesn't understand where career and their passion for art can intersect. What would you send a person like that to?
So if they're a high school student, there's a program on the 28th, September 28th, called Jumpstart Youth Entrepreneurship Program that the Henry Ford Learning Institute is doing. And that is a great way to show how to connect your art and design interests to an entrepreneurial future. And it's actually a 3-day set of workshops. You do have to apply. If you go to our website, you can get more information about that. But Jumpstart would be great for someone saying, how do I turn this love I have for art into a business or into a career?
I'm going to have my son, he's 16, to apply for that because he would love to design shoes or become an architect. Like, he has so many of these talents, and you should go to this. I had my eye on it.
The other one that we've done, it's actually one of my favorites, and it's a little side story. When before I came to Design Corps, I worked in economic development for the city of Detroit, And we went to Youth Day. We do this, Design Corps does this event every year. This year, September 15th, it'll be at the Michigan Science Center called Youth Day. But I would, my husband and I would take our kids, and from the time they were really little. And those are our art and design activities. We have about 15, 20 partners who come and do something hands-on for kids to show them how, if you're making little tinfoil boats and trying to figure out how many marbles you can put in them before it sinks, that's design.
Right.
That trying to engineer that and
I used to have to do the thing with toothpicks, right? And you had to build something on toothpicks in a class and see which one held the most weight.
Yes.
Design.
Right.
Design
See?
right there,
You're
right?
a designer.
My wife is an engineer by trade, so you're speaking her language
Right.
now.
Or the thing where you had to build something with an egg and throw it off a building and you had to make sure the egg didn't crack.
Yeah, the bubble wrap and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Design, right? So we do this day called Youth Day at the Science Center, and it's one of my absolute favorites. And that's for kids really of all ages. We would take our kids when they were 3 years old, to go to that, and they're older now. But that was I remember being at Youth Day in September 2015, and the job that I currently have had been posted, and I wasn't sure if I was going to apply for it. And I made the decision at Youth Day. I was like, awesome. I love this event, and I love the opportunity it has to bring more kids, into this profession. And
well, you can hear the passion in your voice about all of this. I mean, clearly you're in the role for you.
So let me ask, in the course of your design work, do you ever run into celebrities at all?
Well, so one year, actually December 2016, as we were walking out to go to our office holiday party, we got a call saying that Stevie Wonder was going to be in the area for the renaming of Milwaukee Avenue to Stevie Wonder Avenue, and could they use our office as a staging area for Stevie? And I can tell you, it took like 5 minutes for an office for us to say, we're canceling our reservation.
Yes.
We will be waiting here for Stevie.
Right.
And we got to meet him. We got to shake hands with him. He sat in our conference room.
Oh, that's really special.
It was wonderful. It was such a wonderful. It was so exciting. He did the press conference in our office, so it was definitely a highlight. We still talk about the day that Stevie came over.
That's awesome. All right. Well, while we have you here, we want to play a game for the very first time. This is actually brand new. We've never done this with any of our guests before, but
we've been wanting to.
If it doesn't go well, it's our fault.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, we might blame you. We will see. We want to ask you for a series of rapid fire recommendations.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. Where's your favorite place to go to take a client for a power lunch?
Chartreuse, which is in the Park Shelton building on Kirby and Woodward. And I love it because the food is super special. The service is excellent. It's easy in and out, and there's always something fun on the menu.
Nice. Do you have a favorite local artist of any kind? Music, something else?
For years, I still want to someday buy a Camilo Pardo painting.
Oh, yeah.
And Camilo Pardo was a Ford designer for many years, designed the GTO, I believe. Wow. Owns the Bankel building on Woodward, and used to have these, we're old Detroit, right? Because we've lived in the city for 20 years. And, would have parties there. Amazing painter.
His home was on the Weird Homes Detroit tour this past week.
Oh,
and
wow.
he has a mural in the market.
I love his. There's something about like girl on car paintings that he does that are they're really hot.
Yeah.
When you are looking to buy a unique birthday gift for somebody, something that's not from a chain or something like that, something that's really Detroit, where do you go? What do you buy?
So for my husband, I always go to Hugh, which is on Cass Avenue between right at Canfield and Cass. The owner there, Joe Posh, used to own a furniture store called Mezzanine. He has exquisite taste. Beautiful men's items from whether it's furniture or cocktail shakers, books, and he knows my husband very well. So he always has something super, super special that I could never have thought of on my own, and it's just a delight to go into his store.
Nice. When it's a nice day outside, do you have a favorite outdoor spot anywhere in Metro Detroit?
Well, we're downtown people, so we are often on Belle Isle. I love the riverfront. For us, it's an easy 2-block walk, and you're always going to see great people watching. The river is so beautiful. I really can't imagine being away from the water.
Nice. And then besides your month of design, do you have a favorite festival or annual event that you like to attend every year in Detroit?
We have become recent fans of movies in the park. So the movies at New Center Park are really nice for our little family because you can let the kids run wild and they serve cocktails, and it's always a good movie.
Best of both worlds.
I like this feature. I think we got to do
I
this
love
regularly
it.
because we're starting to get a checklist of things that we need to go out and do.
Yeah.
There's been good
You did
movies.
very well.
Okay, thanks. I'm sometimes a little indecisive, so I'm like, oh crap.
Me too.
Oh,
Like,
no,
nice.
that was
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, look, Olga Stella, the Executive Director of Design Core Detroit, thank you so much for stopping by. Of course, September is Detroit Month of Design. If people want more information, where should they go?
They can go right to our website, DetroitMonthOfDesign.com. Also, it's all on DesignCore.org's website as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for putting together such a great event. I know it's a lot of work, and thank you for stopping by.
Thanks so much for having me. This was really fun.
The D Brief.
Your guide to Detroit's arts and entertainment scene.